Okay, so I want to get us going by talking about this video that I had us watch. It's a video essay, and it asks a very unique question, and it's from a very one side, like one political side in particular. He's a liberal video essayist. He made a video that I disagree with, but in a specific way that a lot of people probably won't guess I'm disagreeing with it. The idea is that he makes video essays about why conservatives are wrong, and he had an essay about the Twilight Zone. Now, first I want to say that I used to watch the Twilight Zone. I grew up watching episodes of it. I think my favorite, the one I love the most, is The Sand Kings, which is actually based on a George R. R. Martin story. This one I absolutely remember, The Shelter, and it's about a meteor is heading toward the Earth, and one guy owns a bomb shelter. Nobody else built one during the Cold War.
We repeat, if you're in your home, go to your prepared shelters or to your basement.
And he goes to hide with his family in the shelter. And if this sounds familiar, and if you're a fan of The Simpsons, that you know where this is going, because it's the exact same plot of the same episode in The Simpsons, where Homer builds a shelter.
Okay, so the Twilight Zone, let's start with that, okay?
Yeah.
Before we get into the political side of it, this is a show that ran from the 59 to 62, 63 in that range. I watched it religiously as a kid, too. And I'm a generation older than you. And so I think it's important, and in this video that's linked up in here, this show was written by pros. It was written with different, just top-notch, better than Saturday Night Live, top-notch writers. Wouldn't you say, Joe? I mean, how would you judge this show as far as
Rod Serling
quality?
Was one of the best show presenters, writers, everything. The people they had writing the show were winners of awards. Like I said, George R. R. Martin at the time was like up for a Nebula or Hugo or something like that. Like they, but he was just like one episode. All of their episodes just slapped, and like absolutely, like they had literally award-winning writers for sci-fi and stuff. That's why I went back and watched it, because I didn't grow up with it, but it was like, no, this is required for a good fantasy writer to get into.
And it gets into your imagination, and the tension is so tense that you can't, you're like a moment, you want to turn it off because it's so heavy, but you have to keep watching it. And they just pumped out episode after episode after episode. I mean, they did like 30 episodes in a year, which are in a season, which is unheard of, right?
Right. And
with different actors, with different, just totally different from scratch,
And a lot of them are based on older stories, like very classic. Like there's one where Captain Kirk, William Shatner, like does a deal with the devil, and it is just Faust. Like it is just a retelling of Faust. A lot of these episodes are they are sci-fi tweaks and retellings of very old stories in like the best way possible. I don't know if this one was a retelling, it must be, something from like World War II or something. I know it was obviously a retelling of a Cold War story of there's a meteor, it's
the Cuba Missile Crisis kind of thing, right?
Exactly. Like the assumption or the conceit is that he had dug his bomb shelter because of the crisis, the Cold War or the Cuban Missile Crisis, and everybody had been told you should probably dig one, and everybody knows this guy has one in his backyard, and he is a normal everyday working man who put in his extra money and extra time digging the shelter. And the episode starts with he is sitting around the dinner table with his families, and his friends from around the neighborhood are there too. Like they all live close together, and they're having a dinner party in his honor, like it's his birthday, and they're all smiling and being happy. And it's three different families, I think, three of them.
Despite the fact that what the doctor thinks of as far-sightedness on his part has been a real pain in the neck to the rest of us, what with all the concrete trucks and the nocturnal hammering and
But
It is, and it's a
yeah,
diverse group. They have different educations, and he is, the doctor. He's a physician. And in 50s, 60s fashion, he's smoking a cigarette the whole time, which I love.
yep. 8 out of 10 doctors recommend that brand of Camels, Todd, or whatever the commercial was.
But they're yucking it up and teasing each other, and you can tell that they're close, right?
Yeah, and pretty much like as soon as you start feeling comfortable with them as characters and start feeling like you know them and know them as friends, that's when the call goes out over the radio that not a bomb, but a meteor from space is coming in hot, and it's going to wipe out everything. I don't remember the exact wording they use in the episode, but the idea is that like it's going to be doomsday basically. And so what do they do? He goes to his shelter, goes in with his family, tells everybody good night, good luck, and then they go in and they hunker down. And then very, very soon after, just like the Simpsons episode, they hear a knock.
They mock him. They mock him about his that he's taken all this time and wasted all this money over. They say he's a great guy, but
a nut job. Yeah, I forgot. They gaslight him.
He's a Y2. Yeah, he's a Y2K weirdo who thinks the world's gonna end.
Right. I totally forgot about that part, that they're like teasing him about preparing for this and putting his money and time into this shelter. Now it goes pretty predictably. Anybody who hasn't seen the episode, like the rest is sort of easy to follow. It's neighbors knock on the door, beg to be let in. He tells them, look, I only prepared enough food and space for my family. If you guys come in here, we will literally run out of air and die. We can't eat. We'll run out of food if there's anything prolonged more than like a couple days or a week or something like that. He names some time. And the idea is that, like, I mean, really, like, they're strained for space and food already. In fact, in the Simpsons version, they make a point of like everybody from town tries to like comedically, almost like a Japanese telephone booth prank or like a clown car. They get everybody in town packed into the shelter, to the point where they squeeze the person out who built it, which is Homer, and they're like, yeah, like they're so packed in. The whole screen is just people, limbs, arms, things like that. So it's a joke all around. Like, yeah, you can't fit everybody in. And then in the episode, as they try to convince him to let them in and to help, like let us in. We'll all die out here if you don't let us in. They start pounding on the door, and they use a battering ram basically to take the door down. Now the reason why this is important in this day and age, and also why this video essay exists online, why we'll link to it, even though I kind of disagree with it. It is a metaphor, obviously, for, trust, that while they're pounding on the door, these are this person's neighbors, some people that he thought he would never be betrayed by. Not only are they going to damn them all by breaking the door down, because if a meteor hits and it spreads fire and it makes a pyroclastic cloud and burns anything that coming into the atmosphere and striking the ground. If they break down that door, they all die. Like it's not like they'll get in and put the door back up. They're at this point spitefully breaking down the door, and anything that comes through is going to kill them all.
I can't help but think of the Titanic and some life rafts, and too many people are climbing on them, and they're going to fail. But you can't help it. Almost like animals, just
right,
who are just climbing on there, even though it's going to take everybody down.
Well, it's even worse because, like, at least with the Titanic, you can imagine some people would, in the back of their mind, think, "Oh, if I just stand on the top of the wreckage, at least we may not all be able to survive, but some of us will." If you break down the door of a shelter when fire is about to hit, then it's like none of us make it. It's like it's almost a spite move at that point. That's like if somebody stood back from the Titanic, boats, like the lifeboats, and just pulled out a gun and started putting holes in somebody else's boat because you didn't get on. I may be reading too much into that, but the essayist in this video, Steve Shives, he likens this to Democrats and Republicans. He specifically says that conservatives have shown that they're willing to fight dirty in political spaces, that they are willing to get their hands muddy, cutting off supplies, cutting off safety nets, social safety nets. They're willing to gut infrastructure, take down regulation, take foreign money. And I'm not. This is the essayist making these assertions, not us. The only thing that I will say is that going by the GOP's current sources, their own declarations, they have done much of this. It's part of their plan, and it's also part of like their what they have said that they have done. So I'll just state that as in that way, because I want to be very careful. If Todd and I are going to have this conversation, we at times have done political episodes where we've responded to something political. And we usually start by saying we're not a political podcast. We try very hard not to pick sides.
But then take sides real fast.
Right.
and then pile on to the things we like. So we tip our hand.
Right.
We tip our hand a few times, which is funny because it's not really how we truly believe.
Right.
Because we would change the whole system if we could.
Well,
what we're saying is we have some values that line up some. But
well, that's how we should all be, honestly, is we should all line up a little bit with one side, and we should have a couple values that line up with the other side. Nobody should be forced to vote with one team every single time. We should choose an issue. We should vote issue by issue, and we should have the freedom to do that. We shouldn't have to be tied to a team. So I'll start this by saying that we want to respond to this video essay, and we want to talk about the question at the end of this video, which is the most important part, and I think he got it wrong. The question he poses at the end is, in the Twilight Zone movie or episode, and in The Simpsons, like they kind of cut this part out of The Simpsons, actually, the people banging down the door, they make it clear that this is basically now just a spite move. They're going to tear down infrastructure just simply because they don't want the other side to win. And the other thing that they make it clear on is they're willing to bring in race and sex, and like they're willing to basically get into anything that they have to win. The people banging down the door, they make comments about the Jews, and they make a couple comments in the episode. It starts getting, I don't know, non-PR. What's a way to say it now?
Well, it's funny you say that. Non-PR is right, or being political. And that's one of the big criticisms we have right now is people will say, can you believe that this person is tweeting every hour and saying these things out loud? But not that long ago, these same people would be saying, I value above all things honesty. If you feel something, just say the truth. But when someone actually says how they feel, and it's so, it is honest, right?
Yeah.
They don't like that either, right? That's not okay either. You're not allowed to say that. Like, well,
right. We are not saying that everybody should censor themselves. This Twilight Zone episode is saying that if you reveal that you have deep-seated personal issues against somebody's culture or race, or where they come from, or how they were born, or anything like that, then if that comes out during a time of stress, can you put that genie back in the bottle? When everybody is freaking out because we don't have enough money, like the economy is getting really bad, we're all feeling extreme stress and pressure. We see the comet coming and it's in the sky. Can we forgive each other later on for like, oh, under stress, I used a anti-Semitic slur, or, oh, I was under stress, so I brought, where you came from, Todd, I brought that against you. Like, I started mentioning race. I started mentioning culture. I started mentioning all these things that we kind of make sure aren't on the table. If we don't censor them, then we sure as hell don't give them validity, because they don't have anything to do with the issue. If we're talking politics, why should that have anything to do with anything? But in the Twilight Zone episode, they make a point of, not only are we going to knock down your door so you lose with us, we are also going to, drag your name and drag your race and ethnicity through the mud, your culture through the mud, because we want to burn everything down if you're going to disclude us from the solution, from being safe.
So can you be too honest? can you be too honest and put the genie back in the bottle? Can you?
Well, that's a damn good question, and I think I want to start by saying that the episode and also the essayist kind of have a couple things slightly wrong. The assumption is that one side or the other are more willing to be dirty in the way they fight. Putting the genie back in the bottle assumes that conservatives have more racist feelings than liberals, or that, or vice versa, that liberals have more elitist feelings than conservatives, and that they represent, they don't represent the working class anymore, and that they're willing to, completely cut the worker out of, making money. What is honestly, I went digging deep for this. I went to a psychologist, Jonathan Haidt, and I went digging around for what truly separates conservatives and liberals, and why they may look at each other and say, this is just like that Twilight Zone episode. You're beating down my door and trying to burn us both down because you're angry. In reality, the best I could find that has good studies and statistical proof behind it is that, something we've covered in past episodes actually is that conservatives have stronger beliefs about moral and bodily purity, whereas liberals have stronger beliefs about equality between everybody. And those sound really, really simple and stupid. Like I guess to start with, if you sit both sides down,
I think that's a good paraphrase, though, right?
Yeah,
it's at your core.
It's almost a sanitized way to say that. When in reality, what a good way to put that is if you watch, conservative news, a lot of their outrage, they talk about, can you believe the liberals right now? They almost have no morals. They act without morals. They don't give a shit about purity or Christian values and things like that. And if you watch liberal news at the same time, they're like, oh, can you believe these right-wing nut jobs? They're trashing, they're stepping all over rights, civil rights, and the equality of people, and that we all deserve money and happiness. When you ask those people, hey, do you think the other side deserves this thing? Like ask a conservative, is moral and bodily purity a real thing? They'll usually say, yes, it is. I think, being moral is a good thing. But if you ask them in the reverse, what liberals hold dearly, do you believe equality between everybody? Of course I do. But do you believe equality between somebody who's committed a crime? Do you believe in equality between somebody who hasn't worked as hard as you? Do you believe in equality between somebody who has stepped out on their wife and no longer pays child support? And also
someone who's less educated as you.
Yeah.
The people that works for you on your team. You really believe that they're the same as you? No, you don't.
Exactly. Yeah. So ask a conservative those questions. They will first agree, yes, I believe in equality. And then they'll start backtracking as soon as you start bringing in those other qualifiers. Same thing with a liberal. If you say, hey, do you believe in being moral? They'll say yes. And then you'll say, what about, housing inequality is a big issue. What about being moral with who gets to buy a house? And they'll say everybody deserves a house. And then you say, okay, well, then why is it that in liberal cities, housing inequality is the worst? Because, nice neighborhoods and NIMBYism, and people want to, people want to live in a good area and high education and things. It's like, we don't, we say we believe in the same things across the aisle. We all say we believe in morality and equality. However, one side believes in it stronger than the other, and they're willing to add qualifiers. That's actually the difference. Like so if we take this the soul of who's got the battering ram and who's hiding in the shelter, what we should actually be asking is, why can't we talk through the door? And to start with, this is just us laying the groundwork even for the podcast to continue, is we don't actually believe in the same things in the same way. We believe in one of them with no qualifiers. We kind of believe in the other one with some qualifiers.
I've got a tip for you, though.
Yeah, please.
You could tip your hand. As someone who's been judging people for many years, and that when you really got my imagination going, or I started to think about if I was to take one of my blue collar millionaire Christian friends who serves at church with me. And then you took one of my liberal PhD uh, Dr. Neighbors,
Right.
who's more arrogant, right? But it's a tough one, right?
Right.
They're both pounding on their chest. They both think they're pretty cool, but for much different reasons. But they both feel very superior to pretty much everybody.
100%. And they both feel, not only are they superior, they feel like they made the right decision with their political party, with their vote, with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's why they're where they are.
Yeah. And I'm here in this episode to sit with you, Todd, and be like, I think this video essay got it wrong. I think most people are getting it wrong. I think the meteor is the economy. Like I think that we all, like, the one thing that we agree on without those asterisks next to them is that we deserve to see a doctor. We deserve to be alive. We probably deserve to get a house within our lifetime without paying $1 million for it. And right now, the two political parties and the CEOs that puppet both of those political parties right now, they want us to fight each other to the literal death. They want us pounding on each other's shelter doors.
Well, I think it's good for business. I think what the moral outrage, I think that drives revenue.
Yeah,
I think it drives viewers. It drives attention, and it drives attention will raise your stock to be more visible, I think.
Right. So I know that people are going to be kind of rolling their eyes at the idea of like, oh yeah, sure, let's just all get along and kumbaya in the middle. I don't think we need to. I honestly don't. I think what will probably really make us more aware and better voters and better at everything is just recognizing that, yeah, you can pick whatever side you want. Just look up once in a while and realize that person's getting paid a tremendous amount of money and that they're not paying attention to you. There's a shocking statistics I ran into, and I will absolutely include links so anybody can follow. I can't express how much work we do to make sure that our sources are good, and that this isn't just linking back to a catchy BuzzFeedy political article that has a bunch of buzzwords in them. This is something that I found that was sort of generally accepted by both sides. It's the idea that right now the quote unquote puppet masters, the CEOs, the corporations that don tons of money into both sides, they don't need us. There's this misconception that we're over here fighting for a bomb shelter so that we'll all fit and survive the economic collapse, when in reality the meteor does not need us. And what I mean by that is that there was a Economist article that came out that talked about how 10%, the top elite 10% of the US, the top earners, they account for about half of all consumer spending. So a way to put this into perspective is, have you ever been sitting around during Christmas and like you see a commercial where like it's a family and somebody like gives the other family member a car? Like it's like Summer to Remember sales event, and it's like somebody's wife is like, go look out in go shovel the snow, and the guy grabs the shovel and he goes out to shovel the snow, and there's a truck there, like it's a brand new a Ford pickup with a giant red bow on it, and you're sitting there. I sit and I get angry, like I roll my eyes. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Who is giving each other a truck for Christmas? Like, what world are these people living in? Well, that's just telling you that like the commercials aren't for you. That most commercials, most of the time, are actually trying to capture the top 10% of earners because they spend more than us. The top 10% of earners, they buy half of everything, and if you interest them, they'll buy your stuff. They'll tell their maid to buy your brand of soap. So in this meteor scenario, the meteor that is about to crash from the horizon, that is going to destroy the middle class, and it's already very, very well on its way. It's almost as if we are talking about a meteor that's already hit, honestly. So I was going to if we're all sort of bracing for this impact, and honestly, it feels like it with Spirit Airlines going under and everybody talking about gas prices recently. Um, you know, do you think we're going to survive this the same way we did the Great Depression?
No, because I think it's what you just said about. I think it's a combination of things, and I also think that the AI thing, wiping out, which used to be considered really really white collar, but it's almost a blue collar job now, is computer programmer, which is such it's probably the median income's 110, which sounds like a lot of money, but it really isn't anymore. It used to be.
Yeah,
But to have all those people and certain people of a certain race, a lot of Indian immigrants are doing that, who don't have a lot of transferable skills to other things. Computer programmers are kind of wired to do that. So my point
right.
is, it you know, it's going to knock out a big chunk of those real middle class, buying a condo, first house, 2 car in the garage people, and they're gonna either 1% of them is going to go up, and the other 99% are going to go down to customer service.
Right. That's actually, I did not have the words AI written into this episode, but I'm very glad you brought that up because that is the tip of the meteor. Like we're not just watching, for the last couple of decades, companies have slowly convinced, well, I should say lobbyists for corporations have slowly convinced politicians to hack away at our regulations and separate the lines between their money and our laws. Now we're at a point where you're right. AI is about to destroy the digital middle class, the middle class that survives on computer programming, on SEO writing, on doing these sort of like tech jobs.
And you've seen what it's also going to do is going to make that 1% so much richer, because they are going to be able to just really wage theft now.
Oh, it already is.
They're going to be paying pennies. You know what I mean? Talk about getting richer.
Yeah.
And there's going to be more demand for their shitty jobs, so they can be pickier and they can micromanage and they can fire faster and they can give less benefits and they can take out retirement.
So I have a friend that I talk to almost every day who is a software developer. And I also have another friend who is in cybersecurity who really tried to get me into cybersecurity until I went back to school. And they both talk about how they're not hiring junior developers or junior programmers anymore, that AI is doing all of that. So you don't have this middle class, this like young middle class worker anymore who gets into the job and starts doing the shit jobs, the annoying, dirty grunge work of programming where they have to like do all this like menial stuff for years before they get ranked up to an engineer or with the chief developers or something. You don't have that anymore. It's just the upper guys telling AI to do these menial tasks and to save everybody, save their company money. So we're not training a new middle class. We are not training lower software developers. We are not training lower SEO writers. Same thing happened in my business. I was writing search engine optimization articles. I was writing ad copy. I had like a fairly diverse amount of clients. All the menial stuff that I had a couple people who were training with me. The menial work that was just like you write it, make sure the client's happy, move on. That all got wiped out by AI. Now the only people who are still employed in writing are the people who can write extremely complex, deep things that have a through line that carry over that an AI can't replicate yet. And I say yet. And everybody's saying, okay, good. Well, it got rid of the bad writers and it got rid of the bad programmers. And my answer to that is, yes, it got rid of the young writers and the young programmers who still need to put in their experience to get there. And that's not the only job. It's getting rid of people who do scheduling for human resources. It's getting rid of all these mid-level. What was the book? There was a book that came out. I think it might have actually just been called Shit Jobs, but there's a book that came out and described how most of the middle class survives off of jobs that are kind of floating grunt work in offices jobs. If we take a meteorite and destroy all of those, like a comet slams into Earth and takes out all those jobs all at once, you don't have a middle class anymore. You have a slight upper middle class of people who got their skills before it happened, and you have everybody else who is left flipping burgers and learning trades. And that's what we're fighting over right now. If you're like, why are conservatives and liberals at each other's throats at this moment? It's because we just torched the middle class and cut down all the regulations that separate our laws from corporate money. There was a big essay that came out recently by Palantir, the AI company that is doing data tracking on citizens. And the CEO of Palantir put out this one-page article, and I think it was the Times, and it was all about how, this is the time for other CEOs to go to war. He's literally calling for them to, take up arms, use their technology as a weapon, stake their political claim. And my only mental response to this was, if these CEOs wanted to be in politics so badly, why didn't they go get elected? So that's our thought is okay, will we survive this time? If the economic meteor hits like it did in the Great Depression, it's looking harder and more difficult, and it's looking more up in the air than it was before. It was physically tougher. We all think of the Great Depression as, oh yeah, but we're not living in shacks yet. We're not living in a Hooverville. We're not in bread lines yet. We're pretty damn close. If you've ever been to downtown Portland or downtown Seattle or downtown anywhere down like that has the word downtown in it, you will see that now. Like you will see record homelessness, and it's climbing. And if
I'll tell you another one too,
yeah.
is along with the computer programming, is the fentanyl thing.
Yeah,
I think that's I can't help but notice that I think that's a drug that, as dangerous as it is, it's seen as a purge. Let's just, Oh,
it's funny you say that. Yeah, the CEO of Palantir made a joke about how everybody who shorts their stock, he wanted to spray them with fentanyl in urine. Like he said that.
Yeah, like bug spray.
Yeah,
and
like bug spray.
I feel that I feel that that's the way that's treated. That it's just it's just not taken seriously enough, but it's intentional.
Yeah,
and like the old "who cares" from both sides.
Exactly, the shrug. And both of those companies we've mentioned, ChatGPT and also Palantir, they both have government contracts right now with the current GOP. So it doesn't make the current GOP wrong. It just means that we have not stopped taking money from corporations. In fact, we're doing worse. We're tying them to the government more than before. When people say that we're making a choice right now whether we want to continue being a democracy or we want to become an oligarchy, we're choosing oligarchy at this moment. Both sides are. Like, I genuinely believe that. When there was big pharma insider trading during Joe Biden's administration, and Democrats were sitting through Senate or House committee meetings and using that information to go onto the stock market and trade, it was that's the same thing. That is tying corporate money to our politicians like jetpacks, and it's just faster now. Like this current administration is just rocketing faster and doing it more openly. So how do we come back from this? What's the good ending? like I want to come back to Earth here and back to the shelter and back to, if we now have seen the worst of our neighbors, if our neighbors showed up with a battering ram and have metaphorically beat in our door so that we all die in the incoming meteor fire, how do we reverse that? In fact, they say that very thing in the original Twilight Zone episode. One of the guys holding a battering ram, his knuckles are bloody from beating on the door. He says, now we can go back to being neighbors. Like, now we can go back to being normal. And the main character says, I don't think we can. That is how the video essay that we're responding to ends. That is also how the Twilight Zone episode ends. And that's how I've heard some of my more politically engaged friends put this, is once you've seen the ugly, fight to the death side of the other party, once you've seen how the people in your life who are very deeply political, who have chosen a team, how they are willing to fight, and how they're willing to bring in, they're willing to take, they're willing to deregulate, they're willing to vote for things that you don't agree with, they're willing to call you racist slurs or attack the other side viciously or get their hands dirty. Can you go back to being neighbors? And should you? And that is a open question. Is does it prove that we are like this? And that's sort of like you've worked with a lot of people. That's where I want to start this part of the question. Is you have way more experience working with people who you see every day, people who you interact with every day. When you find out something about somebody, like one of your workers, where it's like, oh, this person, their personal life is they're mean as hell to their wife, or oh, they kind of are a shitty person in their real day to day. Can you forgive that? Can you just be like, we can still be neighbors?
I think when you get past their political front, or their they always say your representative, right? When you go on a first date, you don't date that person, you date the representative.
Yeah.
And I think when you work with or live with somebody, you get to know them at such an intimate level that it's 50-50.
Okay.
I learned from a friend of mine, who's a very wise friend of mine, who is very worldly, very successful in business. And he said that when there's extreme conflict with someone, it's opportunity for a lot deeper relationship. And so, and he's giving me examples. I've had examples in my life. I think it's similar to our forgiveness episode. That if the people are just brutally honest with you, and you've given time, and you can accept them for still, as long as you don't discard them as being, if you can still see value in some of that person, that, I guess that's the only catch. Does that make sense? If you can still have some of their qualities that you want them on your team still.
Okay.
And you're willing to put that aside,
If you can still see a neighbor in them after they've beat down your door.
Yeah.
It's
a tough one.
It is.
Because it's easier just to tribe up with your own people, right? Isn't that more comfortable? Isn't it easier just to replace them?
It is, but it's small, and people don't realize that. I think the mistake people are making, and have been since actually for the past 20 or 30 years, before politics was boring, I think people mistakenly think, oh, I'm on this political side, which means that half of the people in America agree with me, and that's not true. Like maybe a quarter at most. If you are saying all Christians agree with me, if you're a conservative, that's not a huge amount of people. Like that is 60% of America agree with you that there is a God. That's about the closest you get to a majority in this country. Only about 25 to 30% of you will agree with you politically. In fact, 25 to 30% is what we have right now for the approval rating for the GOP. If you ask, who's my group for liberals? Well, some may say that they want more equality financially, like they want affordable housing and a place to go see a doctor. A smaller fraction will say that they want equality socially, where like they want everyone treated the same, and they want the right to exist. And like every time you say, my people, like if you say the phrase "my people," we are big, we are mighty, we have many people. Your tribe gets smaller and smaller every time you ask a question. So
well, let me give you two scenarios. One scenario being one of your most extreme liberal friends, okay? And they refer to a homeless person, which is the politically correct, and they refer to them as bums in a condescending, they're a piece of garbage on the street. And then let me give you another one. Somebody who is cruel to animals, but bragging to you about it. Whether it's, kill a cat or shoot a dog, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that dig? And that's not the deep as it can go or as dirty as it can go, but those are two pretty deep ones to me, you know?
I have experienced both of those very literally, actually. I had a hunt.
Don't they both kind of sting? Don't they sting?
Yeah, I had a hunting buddy who bragged once about how while they were hunting, they would shoot in the air around mountain goats to make them jump to their death. And I also had another friend once that, I worked in security, and when you work in security, you deal with the homeless a lot. And when you naturally pit people against another people for their job, like you literally pay them to be aggressive toward other people, you end up with this. You end up with people who call each other bums. Like, you're like, hey, go get a fucking job, you bum. And in reality, what that person won't get up from their sleeping bag and explain to you the economic conditions that led to them being there, or that they did not have a parent that could have them, let them sleep in their basement for a year while they got their next job. They will get up and, scream at your face and then walk away. Like, there's no explaining that. So I not only are your circumstances that you brought up not just believable, I've experienced them in a very literal sense. And it's hard for me to not see that in the person who did it. And I agree with you that
it does. It scars them to you, right? It tattoos you. And then there's a but, and you're gonna limit how close you can get to that person,
Right. I think that is the you've just struck on the answer that I'm gonna the final answer I'm gonna go with for the $1 million question is, I think you can keep being neighbors, but I think there's a limit. You can't, neighbors with good walls. What is the phrase? Good fences make good neighbors. I think you're going to end up with bigger fences afterwards. And I don't think that somebody who reacts strongly under stress. Okay, so in the goat scenario, the hunting buddy I was talking about, who was like, I was just doing stuff to get animals to throw themselves off a ravine. That was malice. That they were not under stress. They weren't hungry. They weren't doing that because they needed to go scrape up the goats and eat them for, as roadkill for dinner. That was malice. The example where, we were working a job and my friends who were also very poor were being paid to tell the poor who were sleeping, the homeless that were sleeping against the building, get lost. That is stress under stress. Like that is, stress pushes us off our baseline. If our baseline, if our normal behavior, if our pattern in our life is we're a good person, stress can make us do bad things. However, stress won't change you fundamentally. Like, if you make me very stressed, Todd, I may lash out and be an intellectual dickhead. If you stress me out really badly, if you put me in a corner, you take away, if you take away my lease, you make sure I don't have anywhere to live. You make sure I can't go back to a job. Like you burn that job with AI and the meteor hits and you're telling me that I have nothing that I can't go see a doctor anymore because you're cutting me off from my medical insurance. That kind of stress may make me be a real jerk. I may tell you that I don't like you. And that if you are, around me on a really bad day, I think I would say some stuff to you that I would definitely regret. And it would, it might be something along the lines of, I think you're dumb because I'm smart. So I'm going to tell you you're dumb, but I don't think it would make me cruel. I don't think it would make me, racist. I don't think it would make me like, I think stress can push us off our baseline in a meaningful way and have us do things we regret. I don't think it changes us as people though.
I got a study on this. This is going to go way over your head because as smart as you are about most of life, you know nothing about sports.
I'm ready.
Well, one of the toughest job in all sports, and this is not debatable, is being an NFL quarterback. And there's only 32 people of them that do it at a time. It's a very hard job to get. It's a very hard job to keep. But they do statistics on every single thing they do. And the best quarterbacks of all time, the Peyton Manning, the Tom Brady's, the Aaron Rodgers, what they found out is when they're under stress, they're all equally terrible. They're all 30% bad. And the bad ones are already bad, but the great ones under stress are just the same as the bad ones.
Okay.
It's kind of answering your point. It's kind of making your point too.
I think that does. I think that's a good way of putting
They're
it.
still all NFL quarterbacks, though. They're still great. You know?
Yeah, they're still superhumans. They're like superheroes in disguise, trying to pretend to be normal with their laser like arm. Before this episode started, we were talking about Dave Chappelle, who has been in the news recently. And this, I can't think of a better example of what we're talking about, where here's somebody who had a show on Comedy Central, did comedy that by its design was transgressive and talked a lot about race and a lot of social inequality. And then he kind of went on the road, before the president started getting very, very unpopular recently. I mean, literally until last week or the week before, he was kind of on board with I'll tell jokes about trans people, and was okay making the money that came back from that. The telling those jokes was filling seats and getting him an audience. Now that, it looks like the writing is on the wall, not that we know how the vote is going to come down in the midterms or in, the next election. The writing is on the wall for popularity. It's by unbiased metrics like The Economist and stuff. The current popularity of the current GOP is extremely low. And so now he is coming back and asking for understanding. This is almost exactly what I think both the video essay and the Twilight Zone were talking about, which is, can we pretend to be normal again? Now Dave Chappelle came out and he bought a public radio station. I think he did something really big in Ohio. Like, he's trying to make good with the people, and he bought a public radio station and is basically, going to operate it for, the neighborhood. He's literally.
What does he feel like he's making up for? What sin does he think he committed?
Well, that's part of it. Is I don't think he thinks he committed a sin. He had a couple of specials. Like, he had a Netflix special where he made fun of trans people and kind of reenacted arguing against a couple of people who were bitching at him on his Twitter. And then after that, he started making just flat out jokes that were against trans people. I don't think well, first of all, I'm not going to take a stance on anything that is political chaff right now. Like anything that I try to avoid anything that is interesting in the news or that have that have people's backup. I don't give a shit about that he was making trans jokes. I give a shit that he was punching down, that he was attacking his neighbor rather than attacking upward. Old Dave Chappelle used to attack the system, used to speak truth to power, used to make fun of the king. Old Dave Chappelle used to say, isn't this a messed up system?
Anti-racism.
Yeah.
Right.
Now that he's gotten older and is angry at Comedy Central, and honestly, his specials, I keep watching them. They're not funny anymore. A lot of them are just truly complaining about his Comedy Central days and how messed up his finances got. And they're kind of lazy retellings of old jokes. And I think that unpopularity and that sort of coasting has led to him needing a fresh infusion of fans and to make good with the people who used to watch his stuff. So he's I think the phrasing is he's asking for he's not apologizing outright. He's asking for understanding, and he is bringing this laurel, and the laurel is he is supporting a public radio station that the funding was cut by the current GOP, I believe.
I found it weird. I went to his show, and to back up what you said, he had five opening comics before he went on, who were all funnier than he was. He was not funny at all, and he did a lot of bragging about his $50 million, and almost to a point where you would think he's lacking some real self-awareness.
Yeah.
To think that that's common to anybody in the crowd or to his audience. He's coasting on jokes from 10 years ago, and people are laughing before he even says the punchline. It's almost like a rhythm of it. Yeah. So yeah, it was a terrible show. It was terrible.
And to let people know that I'm not a hater, I watched the original stand-ups he did. His first appearances, like he started so early. He was like 18 during his first show. I watched Half Baked. I thought he was funny in Con Air. He was from basically right out of high school a phenom and a genius, and like as a comedy prodigy, it was like, oh yeah, this guy's going to do amazing things. He's going to be everywhere and do everything. And then after Comedy Central, it just became about money, and it still is. Like all of his jokes, they seem like they kind of circle around finances, money, and business deals. And same thing with who he's punching down at. Same thing with this whole thing about him like investing a bunch of money in his local, radio station, and it just every move he makes seems to be about money. And that's hard for me as a working class person to get behind. Like it's hard for me to find that funny. And he is one of those people. Like he's one of those neighbors. When you look at the Twilight Zone episode and you ask yourself, can we pretend to be normal again? That was one of my best public examples of no, I don't think we can. I have seen him take up the battering ram and go after people side to side, who are shoulder to shoulder with him, rather than going after, he's not building a shelter. He's not attacking the meteor. He's not trying to expose, the king has no clothes, whoever king that is. It doesn't matter who's in power. That is one of the things I believe is it doesn't matter what side you pick. You should always question what the leadership is doing all the time. And he didn't do that. He just strictly went for cheap jokes and attacking other working class people. I don't find that funny. And I guess he's my example of, I don't think you can ask strictly for forgiveness in that circumstance. Like that's not one where you can say, let's be neighbors again. It seems like I'm being closed-minded, especially for somebody who espouses looking into self-awareness so often.
Punching down is so easy though, isn't it? And it is cruel. It's the old pick on someone your own size. Why not?
Yeah.
If you have the resources and you have the stage, why wouldn't you pick a fight with somebody who can take it? Right. When I see Trump and Bruce Springsteen going at it, I think that makes sense. They're both giants in their world, right?
Yeah.
But they're not punching down to somebody else, That's fair, right?
Yeah. And
they're not picking on the car salesman at the local car dealership,
Right. I was having a discussion online about this, not an argument, a discussion. And somebody asked, well, how do you know if you're punching down? Because like what, are comedians only ever going to make jokes about their local politicians and the people who are in power and maybe other celebrities? And I said, no, just, don't try to make all of your money off of groups of people who are currently having safety nets revoked in the halls of Congress. like don't make your money off of shitting on groups who are, having their rights revoked. And again, if it was about farmers, that is actually a better example. If Dave Chappelle came out and was like, all these farmers filing for bankruptcy, maybe they should get off their ass and do something, it would be as equally tasteless. It's like, no, here's another group of people who are losing all their rights, filing for bankruptcy at record rates right now, are losing their livelihoods, losing the ability to speak. They're losing their unions. They're unable to have a voice. And it's like, no, we would kill him. Like we would, if he was attacking a group that we were associated with or that was close to us and they're losing their rights, we would equally be like, no more. Like, stop battering down our door, piss off, you're not our neighbor anymore. And that is something that has happened. I've seen other comedians like make fun of the farm belt, like make fun of the dumb rednecks and hicks of Appalachia, and it doesn't work anymore, as it never should have. But that kind of humor isn't funny anymore because we're like, oh, you mean my actual neighbor who's like just lost his chicken farm? Yeah. So I'm I'm going to move off of psychology and move into philosophy and say that. Okay.
It doesn't pay. It doesn't pay as well.
I know.
Hey, you're moving back into that big.
Well, I was actually going to ask to sort of come to a decision. I don't think politics or psychology, I don't think either one of them is going to give us a definitive answer of how do we make friends with our neighbor, how do we forgive in a meaningful way. So I want to leave this to Christianity and Buddhism. And I was going to ask, I think I haven't read I came from an Irish Catholic background. I think Jesus said something about turning the other cheek. Mm-hmm. Does that apply to neighbors who have tried to attack your bunker door?
Oh God. Buddhist is even more don't kill anything, right? Don't kill a bug.
Well, I will represent the Buddhist way in a second here for 2 seconds because I don't know that much, but you first.
I think Jesus was a little bit more street than that, and I think he would have changed with the times too. He hung out. I think he had a girlfriend. He drank a lot of wine. and I think he would go out on the front lawn and fight his neighbor off.
Okay.
And said there's more than that where that came from. Kind of West Virginia, Appalachian style.
Okay.
So he turned the other cheek after he threw about four or five punches just to fight him off.
I'm making that my Discord status. Jesus is street is what my Discord status is going to say now.
Do you know who my dad is?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I went looking for like, what would Buddhists say in this circumstance? And I think I actually found a good answer in there, which is tit for tat. It's defend yourself, but then offer forgiveness once it's settled. I think what you said is pretty actually close to what I found about the Jesus model, which is defend yourself, throw a couple punches back if you have to, and then after you're both catching your breath, that's when you say, okay, let's talk about being neighbors again.
But you don't let them just push you down, and you don't just let them come and do whatever they want to your people.
Right.
You just don't.
Exactly. The Buddhist phrasing I found was the middle way. And there is a quote for this, which is, if there is a sitar player, if the string is too loose, it will not play. If the string is too tight, it will break. And the idea is that there's too much tension, things break. Too little tension, things don't work. I think the same thing works with forgiveness. If you just forgive nonstop, constantly, without any, any recognition of what's happened, blanket forgiveness just is inviting you to get bullied again. It's inviting, if in the Twilight Zone episode, if he had come out of the shelter and been like, oh my God, we didn't get destroyed by a meteor. Well, all is forgiven. You guys are lovely. Like, I will see you next week for the next party. No, that's not the kind of forgiveness that gets anything in life. Like it's not even reasonable or actionable. It's you can't expect anyone to act like that. But if you're too tight and too rigid, if you say, you guys are dead to me, I will meet you on the lawn at dawn with pistols.
Pistols at dawn.
Right. I will
Hamilton style.
I will burn down your house. Yeah, like you guys beat down my bunker door, you're dead by morning. I will come at you. What we need is a middle way, to borrow the quote from Buddhism. We need to be able to offer each other a dignified a way to leave the field of battle. I can't tell you how weird it is seeing the news, like watching either side, either political side, and watching people call for each other's deaths. And I'm thinking, you guys know how many of the other side there are, right? Like, if you win politically, the other side historically usually comes into power in the next wave or in the next election, or if not then like an election after that. The pendulum does in fact swing. Yeah. I know that currently they're trying to change laws and pack courts and change judges to where the conservatives stay in power for longer. And that, if that happens, then it will be harder to get an election where it changes. But eventually it will change. Like, that's just the nature of politics. And in that case,
and parties change too, what they believe in. That changes too with economics.
I that's a totally different episode, but I actually genuinely believe that's the bigger problem we're having right now. It's not that our parties represent us, it's that our parties are getting paid very well to say they represent us.
Yeah,
And
Abraham Lincoln was a Republican.
Right. And when I say that, Todd, I'm going to fight you because of you're in the wrong party and you voted wrong, what I'm actually saying is I'm going to fight you because a CEO donated to my party in a way that made me think that they represent me, and a different CEO donated to your party in a way that makes you think they represent you. So first we should learn to separate, who's our enemy versus who's the meteor. And then we can maybe find a middle way where we say, okay, you did some truly atrocious shit. I don't know if I can trust you that much anymore, but I can't kill you. I can't kill all of you. Like, what am I going to do? Murder, 25 to 30% of all of the U.S. single-handedly? No, like
off with their heads.
Yeah. No, the best way ultimately is the middle way, which is give the opposition a dignified way to say they were wrong as it pertains to the economy, and handing the reins to CEOs to be oligarchs for a while. And then we find a way forward together like they did in the Great Depression. We find our new, the Glass-Steagall Act, where they started regulating banks again. Once we start separating CEOs and CEO money from our politics, we're going to have to, be able to talk to each other again.
But I do want to give a shout out to Rod Sterling, the producer director of The Twilight Zone, and the best voiceover actor of all time. And he died of an occupational hazard. He had that smook sylph, deep, you call masculine voice, the best voice ever. But he smoked 4 packs a day, and that's what killed him at 50 years old.
Wow.